recommended to us when I work in fashion, so I've already been through the syndicate guys. They don't tend to really respond well to that in general. That's just been my experience.
Yep.
So I've been looking at other areas, and one of the suggestions was to find somebody, let's say Burberry, who is a large company who has the same general large vision as you do for the future, and have them invest in your company. I just heard this a couple days ago. What is that, and how does that work? I don't even know what kind of investment. That's not angel, and it's not a syndicate. So I don't really know how that works.
So
if you can describe that.
Going back to, so when I started off, I was talking about in the beginning when it's going to be kind of hard to raise money until it becomes easy. When it's kind of hard to raise money, you have to kind of do a balance between plugging along, somehow finding money to get to the next milestone versus knocking on a lot of doors. You have to balance that based on your cash flow and can you stay in business and your quality of life. It's kind of a hang around the hoop scenario, which is just stall, which is kind of interesting, but I'm not going to put money right now, but most people would say, I'm not going to say no, I'm just going to say, great to meet you, let's kind of keep in touch. You're going to get that a lot if you go too early on. You should look at a venture fund or a seed fund, figure out typically when do they go, and if you're too early, that's generally the answer you're going to get, is for optionality's sake, just kind of stall. I think that you're not going to get that on strategics, but on strategics, you're just going to be, it's going to be really slow because there's usually layers of bureaucracy that has to make it up and back down, and someone along that bureaucracy is going to want to see some level of success that maybe you haven't achieved yet. So if you're pre-product or you're pre-this, now if it's a perfect fit, there's always the, your product or your piece of clothing gets in the hand of the right person that falls in love with it, and that's kind of true of angel investing as well, which is, if you get a prototype in the hands of somebody. In general, if you have a bunch of money and you fall in love with something, you may want to invest. And that's true of angels, that's true of investors, and that's true of strategics. But strategics are generally kind of slow. There's a lot of strategies of when to bring strategics in and how much. Generally, strategics are cost insensitive. So if you're in a position that you have a strong enough hand that you think you can get investors from a couple different sources, but you're optimizing on price, that's a great time to add a strategic to the mix because they are the least price sensitive. I generally don't like strategic leading it because often if a strategic leads around, maybe not in the early seed, but in general, if a strategic leads the round, that generally means they have enough skin in the game. They're trying to kind of buy a cheap option on buying the company later. And that creates a lot of bad signaling, either A, if later on you ever want to sell the company, or B, even if later on you want to do a fundraise, them knowing that there's this person that may take it off the table early on creates some unrest in the VC's eyes. So I often think the best time to bring a strategic in is on that A round or the B round when you want to create some upward pressure on the pricing power of raising the round because it's kind of anti-dilutive, non-price sensitive money, but not in the lead spot. Now, they're so long lead that, and it's slow. I mean, a lot of experience I've had, because at Homestead we went through many cycles and took money from many strategics, and they went through so many cycles that oftentimes, we'd buy the stock back off them along the way, and it would go in and out, and funny things have happened. That by the time you've gone a couple cycles, you're just dealing with a whole completely different set of people than when you first started talking to them, because these big companies, there's just a lot of transition and turnover and changes in strategy along the way that if you think that might be the route, like in fashion, you might start now because you want to take their money in the A or B round. That's how slow it can be. It's just a lot of it takes a while to get enough penetration and bureaucracy up and down the levels.